Well, it was just evidence that there's a way to get things going. Without having without having to know some secret about uh, connection to a record company or something. That you could just um, uh, take the initiative and do it. Um, uh, and those shows were really exciting. Like, I mean, the um, Tom was less excited by them as a group than by seeing their example for uh, their example of taking your fate into your own hands and doing it yourself. Uh, but I thought they were really thrilling. Um, but it's funny, and it was another thing. Someday I'll have to write an essay about this or something because it's odd that happened twice on both those bands that were kind of like the immediate uh, predecessors and inspirations for the the bands at CBGB's. As to me, the Velvet Underground um, seemed like uh, a, uh, almost like a parody of Dylan, um, a kind of in a slightly more inept version of Dylan. Um, the Dolls, of course, were like a parody of, or a slightly more inept version of the Rolling Stones. Um, uh, but it's funny you get over that, and you see these bands for what they're bringing themselves rather than the way they're indebted to or what they have in common with groups that they learned some things from and who were more popular than they were. Um, but the amazing thing about the Dolls was the spirit of excitement and uh, of them being the voice of a whole of a whole underground world of New York that hadn't had expression until they arrived. The Dolls and their audience were one. Um, they kind of created each other. The Dolls came out of this, but they also, it's like what happens at a good rock concert where, um, uh, you know, all the kind of uh, exhilaration and release and excitement is a thing that gets passed back and forth between the band and the crowd. You need it from both sides for it to really, and that happened on this whole bigger scale with the Dolls and the kids for whom they were playing, who were like, um, the kind of just at the end of hippie, but still hippie, but at the same time this kind of transvestite oriented and glamour and camp kind of Warhol sensibility. Um, Kids who'd come to New York to get away from their, you know, constricting conservative small town um, uh, upbringings, and um, the every show was like a party and an orgy and a and like a trip. Um, it was just this. It was it really was like a big party. It was more like you could not separate between the people on stage and the people in the crowd. It was, and that was really thrilling. You did not have to be a virtuoso, and you did not have to have some. You did not have to tailor your work to a pre-existing crowd. You could just be yourself, do what excited you, take the initiative, uh, and the music industry would come to you. you know, that would happen. But also, you know, it was this confirmation that rock and roll was not about virtuosity, and it's not. I mean, that's half the identity of rock and roll. I mean, what makes rock and roll is that it's what unschooled kids can do. It's, in fact, it's the only medium that's about not being especially good at anything. It's about just having the instincts. And that's why it's a teenage medium, because it's you're not any good at anything yet when you're a teenager. You're all instinct. And so it's just about instincts. Rock and roll is about instincts. It's about you know, confidence and determination to make yourself heard and felt, and about just it's just about that natural gracefulness that comes from being tuned into your, you know, to your inner self, unselfconsciously. Yeah, it's not about skill. It's about getting it. It's just about, you know, I get it.